Did you think Singapore math was not a spiral curriculum? Does Saxon math really help kids master math? In the debate of Singapore versus Saxon, which math curriculum spirals better? Hi, I'm Wency, and welcome to episode 2 of my mini series on Singapore math. I'm an expert of Singapore math because I grew up in Singapore. I went through 12 full years of Singapore's math education and lived to tell the tale. And now I'm getting my PhD in math education in the US. Today, I will be breaking down the spiral curriculum for you. I'm going to talk about what it is, the different kinds of spiral, and which spiral is better. We have Jerome Bruner to thank for the concept of a spiral curriculum. Bruner's theory is that if you revisit a concept at increasing levels of difficulty, students will be able to gradually master big ideas. Picture a spiral staircase. Kids using a spiral curriculum are going up the stairs, and they're revisiting familiar topics at every grade level with more of a challenge each time. If we really think about it, all math curricula spiral because we need to break down big mathematical ideas into age-appropriate topics for kids to learn. Otherwise, first graders will be learning algebra on the very first day of class. The issue with Bruner's theory, though, is that he didn't quite give an example of what a spiral curriculum should look like, so it's open to all sorts of interpretation. Singapore math and Saxon math are two distinct examples of a spiral curriculum. So let's take a look at how they spiral in different ways. Let me set the record straight here. Singapore is absolutely 100% a spiral curriculum. Anybody who says otherwise is misinformed. And it's not me who's claiming it. Singapore is very explicit about the use of the spiral approach in their math curriculum. Singapore math spirals exactly like a staircase. You learn a few big topics every year. Then you come back the next year and revisit those topics, but with more complexity. The example that I gave in my What is Singapore Math video is addition. We don't just teach and expect first graders to add within 10,000. They have to start with learning how to add within 10, 20, and 100. Then in a few grade levels, they are more prepared to learn addition within 10,000. In other words, we can also think about Singapore math as spiraling across grade levels. Singapore is not the only one using the vertical spiral in their curriculum design. In fact, most countries that rank at the top of the international assessments for math, like TIMSS and PISA, use the vertical spiral approach. Saxon spirals like a telephone cord, back when we had telephones. Remember this? In Saxon math, the students learn a new concept every day. For example, the lesson on Monday will teach students the topic of time. On Tuesday, the topic jumps to multiplication. On Wednesday, students will learn how to subtract across zeros, and so on and so forth. The idea is that students will have better recall of math facts and concepts through constant exposure and repetition. So, unlike Singapore math, Saxon spirals within each grade level. The horizontal spiral approach is interesting because it is only really prevalent in the US. We don't really see much of this approach elsewhere. It depends on what you value. The horizontal approach works better with a mile wide and an inch deep approach to math education, meaning you want to expose the kids to more topics but less depth in each topic. Now, if your goal is to cultivate a deep understanding of a few key math concepts, then the vertical approach is what you want to use. Imagine a tree with deep roots and a thick trunk. Now imagine a patch of ivy covering up a house. This is what our knowledge structures look like when we use a horizontal spiral approach versus a vertical spiral approach. With the horizontal approach, you will get a knowledge structure like the ivy. It is spread across a large area, but the connections in between are relatively weak and more often than not tangled. On the other hand, a vertical approach facilitates a tree-like knowledge structure. When we learn in an in-depth way, we are forming deep roots and connections, which we then synthesize into the comprehensive discipline of mathematics. Many of you may also be thinking, I would love to use a vertical curriculum, but my kids just keep forgetting what they've been learning throughout the year. Well, this is the beauty of a well-designed curriculum. A high-quality curriculum should integrate previously learned topics and concepts throughout the grade level. For example, in Singapore's curriculum, students learn addition and subtraction at the beginning of the school year. This doesn't mean that they don't add or subtract for the rest of the school year once they wrap up that chapter. They are expected to add and subtract continuously, even though they may be working on different topics, such as money or measurements. For those of you interested in going down a rabbit hole in the vertical versus horizontal spiral debate, I'm going to include a link to Dr. Vicki Snider's article in the description below. Just a heads up, Dr. Snider calls a vertical spiral curriculum a strand curriculum and a horizontal one a spiral curriculum. She compares these two spiral approaches, just like we did today, in a much more in-depth way. She does pick a winning approach in her article though, but I'm not going to spoil it for you here. So happy reading! If you want to learn more about Singapore math, you can purchase my book through the link in the description. On next week's episode, dropping at the same time on Wednesday, we will be seeing the CPA approach in action. Don't miss out and stay tuned by hitting that subscribe button.